Okay, so this is find a missing coordinate using slope RFP on IXL, 8th grade IXL. And this is Mr. King. Let's get started. So this is actually level 2, and it goes from the SMART score of 28 up to 50. So I previewed it, and there are a few things that we need to talk about because it does get a little tricky. So let's do a couple problems. I thought I saw some fractions in there. So um, again, a line that includes the points k -2 and 9 -10 has a slope of -8. What's the value of k? So whenever they give you the slope and they give you the points, that means you need to use the formula y equals mx plus b. And as we talked about, m is slope, b is the y-axis intercept. So let's plug in what we know. And we have to start with the, let's start with this ordered pair. That's the one we know. So we know that y is -10, and we know the slope, right? It's -8. We know the x is 9. Let's put that in there. And we're solving for b first. Once we find our y-axis intercept, then we can solve the rest of it, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. -10 equals -8 times 9, -72 plus b. To solve for b, you do the opposite of whatever this is using our algebra. Algebra is opposites. So plus 72, since it's a negative, it's a subtraction, we add. All right, plus 72. All right, this cancels out on this side. And that's going to be b equals 72 minus 10, which is 62. So we now have our b. Our b is 62. So b is 62. All right. So let's do this again. Y equals mx plus b. But this time we're going to use this. So remember, x is k, y is -2. So we don't know what our x value is, but we do know our y value. So I can plug in -2 here for y. I know my slope, that's -8. I'm going to put that there. I don't know what x is, so I'm actually going to put k there. And I do know what b is, it's 62. It's this y-intercept is 62. So this is going to be -2 equals -8k plus 62. So in algebra, you need to solve for your variable by getting rid of everything that's on the same side as your variable. We can't combine any like terms because this is a k value and this is a number. So we need to get rid of a -8 and we need to get rid of a positive 62. So also in algebra, we, instead of doing order of operations starting with parentheses, we start with the add subtract. That's how we get rid of stuff. So we're going to get rid of the subtract by subtracting 62 because it's add 62. And we're going to do minus 62 on this side. This cancels out. And it leaves us with -8k on the right hand side of our equation. And since they're the same sign, you need to add them up, right? -64. Always take the sign of the larger number. And then we're going to divide both sides by -8. And why do we divide? Well, in algebra, the opposite operation. Since this is -8 times k, to get rid of it, we divide it by -8. And our answer is going to be k equals positive 64. K equals positive 64. All right, I'm going to enter that in and see what else we have here. So k is positive 64. Oh, I'm sorry. I almost did that wrong. -8, -64 divided by -8 is positive 8 because 8 times 8 is 64. I'm so glad I didn't click submit. That would have been bad. Okay. So let's see what other tricky stuff we have. It looks like we have a fraction now for our slope. All right. And don't freak out because usually they're manageable fractions. Like this is -1/4. So that's pretty manageable. Let's do this. So again, a line with a slope of -1/4 passes through the points f -1 and -3, 2. And what's the value of f? We always use our equation of a line. Okay. We also call this y-intercept form or slope-intercept form. So let's plug in what we know. So y, we have to use this ordered pair. We know our y value is 2. We know our slope is -1/4. We know our x is -3. So since you're multiplying, here's what I recommend. Put it in as -3/1 because you're going to multiply across. And then plus b, we don't know b yet, right? So if you multiply across here, change the color to red. Oops, I almost deleted everything. That would have been bad. Okay, so -1 times -3 is going to be +3, and 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, that's how you do that. You multiply across. So 3/4 plus b. All right, and then we have to subtract. We're using algebra. Remember, we need to get rid of this number 3/4. So we're going to subtract 3/4. Since it's a positive adding 3/4, we subtract 3/4. 3/4 to both sides. That cancels out. Now we need to do 2 minus 3/4. Okay? So 2 minus 3/4. One way of thinking about it is that, let me do that right up here. So you have 2 minus 3/4. Okay? So think about one whole number. One whole, this is two whole numbers, right? 1 plus 1. So one whole is 4/4, right? That's 1. So 2 would be two groups of 4/4 or 8/4. So it's like 8/4 minus 3/4. So if you have 8/4 and you take 3/4 away, you're going to have 5/4. So B is equal to 5/4. Okay? If that was confusing to you, let me show you another way to do it. So it's 2 minus 3/4. Think of it as 2 over 1 minus 3/4. In order to subtract those, you need the same denominator. So 4 is the denominator you need to have. So if I multiply the bottom by 4, I get 4. So I have to multiply the top by 4 to get 8/4. That's another way of doing it. So we have our B. Our B is 5/4. So let's do this again. Y equals mx plus b, our equation of a line. But this time we're going to use this. We're going to do f as our x and -1 as our y. We know our y is -1. Our slope is -1/4. We are solving for f as our x, and our b is +5/4. And this is not too bad because, again, this is also in fourths. So we don't need to convert, which is good. So now, in order to solve for f like we did before, I need to get rid of this, and I need to get rid of this. I'm going to start with the add subtract by subtracting 5/4 from both sides, minus 5/4. So let me show you that off to the side. So -1 minus 5/4. Okay, so remember, in order to add or subtract fractions, you need to have a common denominator of 4. Right now, this is -1 over 1. So if I multiply this by 4, it gives me 4. And I need to multiply this by 4 to give me -4/4. Now, since I have two negatives, I need to add the numerators. So 5 plus 4 is negative 9 fourths. Okay? So on the left-hand side, I'll now have negative 9 fourths when I subtract those. So this will be negative, I'm running out of space, so negative 9 fourths. This will be gone. So I'm just going to erase it because we're running out of space. Okay. And now I also need to get rid of negative 1/4. And remember, it's multiplying. So we divide by negative 1/4. So I'm going to divide negative 9 fourths divided by negative 1/4. So how do I divide fractions? I use keep, change, flip. So let's do that right up here, okay? So let's do negative 9 fourths divided by negative 1/4. Okay, so we're going to do K, C, F. Okay, keep, change, flip. We're going to keep this first thing the same. We're going to change it, and then we're going to flip it. So it's going to become negative 4/1. Okay, always flip the last part here. Okay, negative 4/1. Negative 4/1. And remember, the negative doesn't really matter. It could be on the top or the bottom. It does matter, but I'm saying it could be on the top or the bottom. So let's multiply straight across. That's how we multiply fractions. So negative 9 times negative 4 is positive 36. And 4 times 1 is 4. And 36 divided by 4 is positive 9. Let's go ahead and enter that in. And we shall call it a day on this level.